Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku had a half water quirk and half fire quirk. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The plastic chair in the waiting room was cold against the back of his legs, a stark contrast to the sterile, stifling heat of the clinic. 4-year-old Izuku Midoriya swung his feet, his red sneakers scuffing the linoleum floor in a rhythmic squeak that betrayed his anxiety. Beside him, Inko Midoriya nervously twisted the strap of her purse, her eyes darting between the clock and the closed door of the examination room. "Do you think it's a cool one, Mom?" Izuku asked for the 10th time, clutching his limited edition All Might action figure, the Silver Age variant with the articulated cape. "Do you think I can breathe fire like Dad? Or maybe pull things like you? Or maybe both? Can you imagine both?" Inko smiled, though the corners of her mouth trembled slightly. "I'm sure whatever it is, it will be wonderful, Izuku." The door creaked open. A nurse with a mutation that gave her the head of a blue jay peeked out. "Midoriya? The doctor will see you now." They shuffled into the office. The doctor was a squat man with bushy mustache and thick, bottle-bottom goggles that magnified his eyes into unblinking saucers. He sat in a swivel chair, tapping a pen against a clipboard that held the results of Izuku's X-rays and blood work. "Well," the doctor grunted, spinning around to face them. He didn't look at Inko. He looked straight at Izuku, his expression unreadable. "Mrs. Midoriya, usually I have to tell parents that their child has no quirk factor, or that the quirk is dormant. In this case," he leaned forward, "the kid's a walking thermodynamic anomaly." Inko blinked. "I pardon? Your husband breathes fire," the doctor listed, flipping a page. "You possess a minor form of telekinesis limited to small objects. Genetics usually picks a lane. Sometimes it blends them, making, say, pyrokinesis that you can steer with your mind. But Izuku here." The doctor pointed his pen at the boy. "Show him, kid. Try to do what your dad does." Izuku hesitated. He scrunched up his face, channeling every ounce of his 4-year-old will into his breath. He wanted to be like his dad. He wanted to be a hero. He pushed from his gut. Hiccup. It wasn't a roar of flame. It was a sneeze, but as he sneezed, his right arm jerked forward, and a distinct whoosh of orange flame erupted from his palm, spiraling into a small vortex. Simultaneously, his left hand clenched, and moisture from the air, and seemingly from his own pores, condensed instantly, shooting out a pressurized sphere of water that splashed heavily onto the doctor's desk. The fire fizzled out. The water dripped onto the carpet. Silence reigned in the room for 3 seconds. "See?" the doctor said, sounding bored but oddly impressed. "Heteromorphic chimera fusion. That's the technical term. His right side generates high-intensity exothermic energy, fire. His left side generates endothermic manipulation of moisture, hydrokinesis. He's perfectly split down the middle." Izuku stared at his hands. He felt a strange sensation. His right arm felt pleasantly warm, like he'd been sleeping in the sun. His left arm felt cool, like he'd dipped it in a river. "He has a quirk," Inko whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh, thank goodness. He has 2 quirks, functionally," the doctor corrected, tapping the X-ray on the wall. "Or 1 quirk that fights itself. Listen to me closely, Mrs. Midoriya. The human body maintains a temperature of roughly 37 degrees Celsius. Izuku's quirk destroys that regulation. If he overuses the right, he'll induce heatstroke in minutes. If he overuses the left, he'll suffer hypothermia and severe dehydration. And if he uses them both at the same time without perfect rhythm." The doctor made an exploding motion with his hands. "Physics happens. Fire plus water equals steam. Expanding gas. If he's not careful, he'll cook himself in his own vapor." Izuku didn't hear the warnings. He was too busy looking at his palms, trembling with pure, unadulterated joy. He wasn't quirkless. He wasn't normal. "I can be a hero," he whispered, clutching the All Might figure. "I can be just like him." 10 years later, the classroom at Aldera Junior High was a chaotic ecosystem of teenage hormones and minor quirk displays. Students stretched elongated fingers, levitated pencils, or turn their skin into rock while waiting for the homeroom teacher to arrive. At the back of the class, Izuku Midoriya sat with his head down, scribbling furiously into a burnt, waterlogged notebook titled Hero Analysis for the Future number 13. He wore the standard black Gakurin uniform, but the sleeves were rolled up. His right arm was wrapped in a compression sleeve designed to retain heat, while his left arm was bare, his skin looking slightly pale. So, as third-year students, it's time to think seriously about your futures and what you want to do with your lives, the teacher announced, slapping a stack of papers onto his podium. The class quieted down, though the hum of excitement was palpable. I could pass out these career aptitude tests, the teacher continued, a smirk playing on his lips. He grabbed the stack and threw them into the air. But why bother? I know you all want to go to the hero track, the class erupted. Hands turned into claws, eyes glowed, and minor telekinetic waves shook the desks. Everyone cheered, except for two people. Izuku continued to write, the tip of his pen scratching against the paper, and Katsuki Bakugo, feet kicked up on his desk, scoffed loud enough to cut through the noise. Teach, Bakugo drawled, his voice a low growl. Don't lump me in with these extras. They'll be lucky to end up as sidekicks to some D-lister. I'm the real deal. The class turned on him, shouting insults, but Bakugo merely laughed, small explosions popping in his palms like firecrackers. Shut up, you extras! I'm going for the top. I'm gonna surpass All Might and become the richest, most famous hero of all time. Oh, that's right, the teacher mused, checking his clipboard. Bakugo, you're aiming for UA High, aren't you? The class gasped. UA was the national standard, the fortress of heroics. The acceptance rate was abysmal. That's exactly right. Bakugo jumped onto his desk, arms spread wide. I aced the mock exams. I'm the only one from this backwater school who has a shot at the big leagues. Actually, the teacher interrupted, adjusting his glasses. Midoriya applied to UA as well. The silence that followed was heavy, sudden, and terrifying. Every head turned slowly toward the back of the room. Izuku froze, his pen hovering over the page. He slowly looked up, meeting the collective gaze of the class. Then Bakugo moved. He didn't scream. He didn't launch an explosion. He simply hopped off his desk and stalked down the aisle, the heavy thud of his boots echoing in the quiet room. He stopped in front of Izuku's desk and slammed his hands down on the wood. The desk groaned. Deku, Bakugo said. His voice wasn't loud. It was dangerously calm. We need to talk. Keikaken, Izuku stammered, instinctively pulling his arms close to his chest. I just want to try. The testing isn't just Quirk-based anymore, and… Shut up, Bakugo hissed. Smoke curled from his palms, carrying the sweet, burnt scent of nitroglycerin. You think you can stand in the same ring as me with that leaky faucet of a Quirk? You think you're tough? I'm not trying to compete with you like that. Izuku protested, leaning back. But it's my dream. I have a Quirk, Kaken. I'm not defenseless. Defenseless? Bakugo let out a sharp, barking laugh. No, you're not defenseless. You're a liability. Remember 4th grade? Remember the dodgeball tournament? Izuku flinched. He remembered. He had tried to block a ball with a wall of water, panicked, and accidentally ignited his right side. The resulting steam explosion had sent 3 classmates to the nurse's office with second-degree scalds and left Izuku passed out from dehydration. You're a walking tea kettle, Bakugo sneered, leaning in until their noses almost touched. You can't control it. You overheat, you dry out, or you burn everyone around you. You enter the UA exam, and you're gonna get yourself killed. And if you die trying to be a hero… Bakugo's eyes narrowed, ruby red and intense. It's gonna make me look bad for coming from the same school as a failure who couldn't even survive the entrance exam. I've been training. Izuku shot back, a sudden spark of defiance in his eyes. The temperature in the room seemed to spike. I can handle the output now. I can modulate the temperature. I'm not the same as I was when we were 10. Bakugo stared at him for a long moment. Then, he scoffed and turned away. Whatever, Steamnerd. Just don't come crying to me when you extinguish yourself. He walked back to his seat, but the air in the room remained tense. Izuku looked down at his hands. His right palm was sweating. His left was dry and cold. Thermal equilibrium. It was the constant battle of his life. School ended with the ringing of a bell that sounded more like a release valve. Izuku packed his bag quickly, eager to avoid any further confrontation with Bakugo or his lackeys. He slipped out the back door, taking the long route home through the residential district. The afternoon sun was relentless. Izuku wiped sweat from his brow with his right hand, then pressed his cool left hand against his neck to regulate his body temperature. It was second nature now, a biological thermostat he had to manually adjust. As he walked, he pulled out his notebook. Entry 402, Quirk Synergies. Current problem: the light and frost effect prevents water from directly cooling the fire side during high output. If I create a water layer over the fire skin, it vaporizes instantly, causing steam burns. Solution: external projection only. Use water for mobility, slicks/jets, and fire for propulsion/offense. Do not mix near the body. He was so engrossed in his muttering that he didn't hear the manhole cover slide open behind him. He didn't hear the wet, squelching sound of sludge dragging itself onto the pavement. A medium-sized invisibility cloak. A gurgling voice rasped. Izuku spun around, dropping his notebook. Towering over him was a monstrosity of sewage and slime, two bulging yellow eyes floating in the muck. The villain lunged before Izuku could scream, a tendril of sludge shooting forward to wrap around his mouth and nose. Don't struggle, kid, the villain hissed, the liquid forcing its way into Izuku's nostrils. I just need to hide inside you for a while. It'll only hurt for about 45 seconds. Panic. Pure, primal panic. Izuku clawed at the slime, but his fingers sank uselessly into the fluid. He couldn't breathe. The sludge was forcing its way down his throat. His vision began to spot with black dots. I'm going to die. I'm going to die here, and nobody will know. No. His survival instinct kicked in. He wasn't quirkless. He had power, heat. Burn it away! Izuku squeezed his eyes shut and ignited his right side. A roar of flame erupted from his shoulder and arm. The heat was intense, turning the alleyway into an oven. Ack! The villain recoiled slightly, the sludge bubbling and hissing where the fire touched it. Hot! You little brat! But the slime didn't let go. It was too viscous, too much mass to burn through instantly. If anything, the heat made the smell worse, a suffocating stench of burning sewage. Fire isn't working. He's liquid. Izuku's lungs were burning. He needed to push him back. Water! High pressure! He cut the fire and swung his left arm up, channeling every ounce of moisture he could muster. His skin went pale as the water was drawn from his cells. A jet of water, pressurized like a fire hose, blasted from his palm, striking the villain's eye. Gah! The villain shrieked, loosening his grip. Izuku fell to his knees, coughing up slime. He gasped for air, his throat raw. He scrambled backward, creating distance. You have a feisty quirk, don't you? The villain growled, reforming his eye. The sludge swirled, angry and turbulent. But you're running out of air, and I'm infinite. The villain lunged again, a massive wave of muck crashing down. Izuku crossed his arms. I can't breathe fire, he'll suffocate me. I can't use water, I'm already dizzy. Think. Think. Equilibrium. Izuku clapped his hands together. He didn't aim for the villain. He aimed for the air between them. Thermal shock, flash fog. Fire met water in a chaotic collision. The reaction was instantaneous. A violent explosion of white steam erupted outward, expanding with enough force to rattle the windows of the nearby buildings. The villain was blasted backward by the sheer pressure of the expanding gas. Izuku was thrown back too, hitting the concrete wall hard. The steam cloud was thick, blinding, and scalding hot. Detritus. Smash! A gust of wind, powerful enough to change the weather, tore through the alley. The steam vanished in a heartbeat. The sludge villain was scattered across the walls like abstract art. Standing in the center of the devastation, striking a pose that radiated safety and justice, was a mountain of a man. Have no fear, the figure boomed, his smile blindingly white. Why? Because I am here. Izuku stared, his vision blurry, his body trembling from the sudden drop in hydration and the heat of the steam. All might? Then, darkness took him. When Izuku woke up, he was getting slapped lightly on the cheek. Hey! Hey! Wake up! Thought we lost you there. Izuku's eyes snapped open. All Might was hovering over him, his face inches away. Izuku scrambled back with a yelp, hitting the wall again. All Might! You're really him! You're real! I am indeed! All Might laughed, standing up to his full, impressive height. And you, young man, are quite the little firecracker. Or should I say steam engine? Apologies for getting you caught up in my justice ing. I usually pay more attention to the sewers, but this guy was a slippery one. All Might held up a soda bottle. Inside, the sludge villain was swirling angrily, trapped. I've got him secured. Now, I must be off to the police station. All Might marched toward the exit of the alley, stretching his legs. Wait! Izuku scrambled to his feet. He felt dizzy, dehydration. He swayed but steadied himself against the wall. Please! I have to ask you something. All Might paused, looking back over his shoulder. No time, my boy. Evil never sleeps, and neither do I. He bent his knees, preparing to jump. Can I be a hero even if my quirk hurts me? The question hung in the air, desperate and raw. All Might stopped. He slowly straightened up. The wind rustled the trash in the alley. What do you mean? All Might asked, his voice dropping an octave, losing some of its performative boom. Izuku clutched his chest. My quirk, it's fire and water. But they fight each other. If I use too much fire, I burn. If I use too much water, I collapse. Just now, I almost knocked myself out just trying to get him off me. Everyone says I'm a liability. That I'll just end up hurting myself or someone else. Izuku looked up, tears stinging his eyes. You always smile. You always save everyone. But does it hurt? Do you have to sacrifice yourself to be the symbol of peace? All Might looked at the boy. He saw the burn marks on the collar of his uniform. He saw the pale, dry skin of his left arm, and he felt the dull throb in his own side, the missing respiratory organs, the constant pain of his injury. Does it hurt? Before All Might could answer, a droplet of blood fell from his mouth. Poof! Steam, not from Izuku, enveloped the hero. As it cleared, the mountain of muscle was gone. In his place stood a skeletal, emaciated man with sunken eyes and sharp, angular limbs. Izuku screamed. An imposter! Where did All Might go? I am All Might, the skeletal man sighed, sitting down heavily on a crate. Blood trickled down his chin. Calm down, kid, but you deflated. It's like guys holding in their gut at the pool, All Might explained, wiping his mouth. I flex. Izuku stood frozen, his worldview cracking slightly. The symbol of peace was frail? To answer your question, kid, All Might said, his voice grave. He lifted his shirt, revealing the horrific, spider-web scar that covered half his torso. Izuku gasped. 5 years ago. A villain did this. Half my respiratory organs destroyed. My stomach lost. I can only do hero work for about 3 hours a day now. 5 years ago? Was it Toxic Chainsaw? You know your stuff. But no. This fight was kept from the public. All Might dropped his shirt. Pro heroes are always risking their lives. Some villains are just monsters. But you asked if you can be a hero if your quirk hurts you. All Might looked Izuku in the eye. The job is risking your life. It's putting your body on the line. My power is breaking me, bit by bit. But... He paused. There is a difference between sacrifice and suicide. You have a powerful quirk, kid. I saw that steam explosion. That was clever. But if you cannot regulate it, you will be a liability. Izuku looked down at his feet. The words stung, but they were true. However, All Might continued, most quirks have drawbacks. Endeavor overheats. Best genus struggles without fiber. The question isn't does it hurt. The question is can you master the pain? All Might stood up, his skeletal frame trembling slightly. If you want to save people, you have to save yourself first. Learn to control that steam, kid. Otherwise, you're just a bomb waiting to go off. All Might walked toward the exit of the alley. I'll take this guy to the police. You go home. Drink some water. You look like a dried prune. Izuku watched him go. It wasn't a no, but it wasn't the yes he had dreamed of. It was a challenge. Learn to control it. Izuku walked home in a daze. His mind was racing. All Might was injured. All Might was mortal. And All Might had told him to master his power. He didn't tell me to give up. He turned a corner, heading toward the shopping district, intending to buy a sports drink to rehydrate. Boom! An explosion shook the ground. Smoke billowed into the sky a few blocks away. A villain attack? Izuku muttered instinctively. I should go see, maybe take notes. He ran toward the smoke. When he arrived, the scene was chaos. Fire was everywhere. The heroes, Death Arms, Kamui Woods, Empty Lady, were standing around, helpless. I can't get close. Death Arms shouted, shielding his face. The heat is too intense. And the villain has a hostage. Izuku pushed through the crowd. His heart stopped. In the center of a burning inferno, the Sludge villain had reformed. And trapped in his suffocating grip, explosions firing wildly from his palms, was Katsuki Bakugo. Kaken! Izuku gasped. Where is All Might? A bystander yelled. He was chasing this guy earlier. Izuku felt a wave of cold guilt wash over him. I wasted his time. He dropped the bottle because of me. All Might is out of time. He can't help. Bakugo was struggling. His explosions were strong, but they were only feeding the fire around them. The sludge was forcing its way into his mouth. Bakugo's eyes met Izuku's across the crowd. They weren't eyes of anger. They were eyes of pure terror. They were pleading. Izuku didn't think. His legs moved on their own. Hey! Come back here, kid! You'll die! Death Arms shouted. Izuku ducked under the police tape. He sprinted toward the flames. The heat was unbearable for a normal person, but Izuku's right side drank it in. He felt the ambient thermal energy charging him up. I can't beat him with power, Izuku thought, his mind processing at a mile a second. The sludge is fluid. Physical hits don't work. Fire makes him angry. Water isn't enough. He reached the villain. The sludge villain turned his eye toward him. You again? I'll kill you this time. The villain swung a massive tendril. Izuku slid on the pavement. Hydro Slick. He shot a stream of water at his own feet, creating a frictionless path. He skated under the attack, the sludge slamming into a car behind him. He was close now. He could see Bakugo's face. I need to separate them. Kaken! Close your mouth! Izuku screamed. Izuku planted his feet. He raised his left hand. He didn't just shoot water, he focused on the shape. He visualized a high-pressure cutter, the kind used to slice steel in factories. Hydro cutter, a thin, razor-sharp beam of water shot from his index and middle fingers. It sliced through the sludge wrapping Bakugo's arm. The villain roared in pain, the liquid losing cohesion. But it wasn't enough. The sludge was reforming too fast. I need an updraft. I need to lift the slime off him. Izuku slammed his right hand onto the burning pavement. He pulled the heat from the asphalt, channeling it into a concentrated point under the villain. Thermal updraft. He released a blast of pure heat, not fire, but heat waves. The sudden temperature spike caused the air to rise violently. Combined with the moisture from his water attacks, the air rapidly expanded. Whoosh! The sludge was lifted upward, defying gravity for a split second. Bakugo was pulled free from the mass, gasping for air. Deku? Bakugo coughed, falling to his knees. Move! Izuku grabbed Bakugo's collar. I'm gonna crush you both. The sludge villain shrieked, reforming into a tidal wave of muck, crashing down on them. Izuku looked up. He was out of water. He was overheating. He raised his arms to shield Bakugo. I tried. I really tried. Suddenly, a shadow fell over them. I really am pathetic, a deep voice growled. Blood sprayed through the air. I told you the traits of a great hero, but I didn't live up to them myself. All Might appeared, forcing his muscle form past its limit. He stood in front of the boys, blocking the sludge with his body. Pros are always risking their lives. All Might pulled back his fist. He didn't aim at the villain. He aimed at the sky. Detroit. Smash! The air pressure didn't just hit the villain, it changed the atmosphere. A tornado formed in the middle of the street. The sludge was scattered into droplets. The fires were snuffed out by the vacuum. Clouds formed instantly above them, and rain began to fall. The crowd went silent. Then they erupted. Izuku fell back, sitting on the wet pavement. He was panting, his vision blurry. Steam rose gently from his shoulders as the rain hit his hot skin. Beside him, Bakugo was staring at the ground, trembling. The aftermath was a blur. The pro-heroes scolded Izuku for minutes. "You were reckless! You could have gotten yourself killed! That was a suicide run," but they also praised his quirk. "That water cutter was precise. You handled the heat well." Bakugo was praised for his bravery and his powerful quirk. He didn't say a word. Finally, the sun began to set. Izuku walked home alone, exhausted. His uniform was ruined, scorched on one side and soaked on the other. "Deku!" Izuku turned around. Katsuki Bakugo was running toward him. He stopped a few feet away, panting. "Kaken?" Bakugo glared at him. He looked furious. "I didn't ask for your help. And you didn't save me. I was fine. I would have gotten free on my own. You're just a quirk-obsessed nerd who doesn't know when to quit." Bakugo turned around, jamming his hands in his pockets. He stopped. He didn't look back. "But..." Bakugo's voice was quieter. "You didn't burn yourself. And you didn't pass out." Izuku blinked. "Don't get cocky," Bakugo growled. "I'm still going to be number one. If you're going to UA, don't extinguish yourself before I get the chance to beat you properly." Bakugo stormed off. Izuku stood there stunned. It wasn't a thank you. But it was an acknowledgement. For the first time in years, Bakugo had looked at him as a rival, not a pebble. "I am here. Wah!" Izuku jumped as All Might slid out from around a corner in his muscle form, before instantly poofing back into his skeletal form, coughing up blood. "All Might! You really need to be careful," Izuku cried. I'm fine, All Might waved him off. "Young Midoriya, I have a proposal for you." Izuku straightened up. "A proposal? Today you acted when no one else did," All Might said, his eyes intense. "You were scared. You knew your weakness. But you moved anyway. That is the essence of a hero. Stories of top heroes all have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they could think." Izuku clutched his chest, tears welling up again. "You have a difficult path ahead," All Might continued. "Your quirk is a double-edged sword. It is chaos. But today, I saw you create order from that chaos. You use physics, strategy, and guts." All Might pointed a bony finger at him. "I am looking for a successor. Not just for my power, but for my spirit. However, your body is not ready. Your quirk requires a vessel that can withstand extreme shifts in temperature and energy." "Successor?" Izuku whispered. "I want to train you," All Might said, grinning. "I want to help you master that thermal equilibrium. I want to teach you how to be a hero who doesn't break. And if you can survive my training, if you can prove that you can handle your own power..." All Might looked at the setting sun. "Then we will talk about the future. About UA. And about the symbol of peace." He looked back at Izuku. "Izuku Midoriya. You can become a hero." Izuku fell to his knees, burying his face in his hands. He cried. The steam from his tears rose into the cool evening air, vanishing into the twilight. For the first time, the heat on his right and the cold on his left felt balanced. "Yes," Izuku sobbed. "I'll do it. I'll do anything." The streetlights flickered, casting long, dancing shadows against the brickwork of the narrow residential street. The rain that All Might's punch had summoned had tapered off into a fine, misty drizzle, slicking the pavement and cooling the asphalt. Izuku Midoriya sat on the curb, his knees pulled to his chest. His uniform was a disaster, the right sleeve scorched into black tatters, the left side sodden and clinging to his skin. He held a bottle of water in his left hand, the plastic crinkling under his grip, while his right hand rested on his thigh, radiating a gentle, dry heat that slowly evaporated the moisture on his trousers. "You said a successor?" Izuku asked, his voice hoarse. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion and a pounding headache, the hallmark of rapid dehydration. "All Might," currently in his skeletal, deflated form, leaned against the lamppost. He looked less like the symbol of peace and more like a ghost haunting the neighborhood. He wiped a streak of blood from his chin with a handkerchief. I did, All Might rasped. But I need you to listen closely, young Midoriya. What I am about to tell you is the world's most closely guarded secret. It is the truth behind the smile. He held up his hand, palm open. My quirk, the world calls it super strength or invincibility. But that is merely how it manifests. The true nature of my power is something else entirely. It is a torch, passed down from generation to generation. A sacred cultivation of power. It is called One for All. Izuku's eyes widened. One for all? One person cultivates the power and passes it to another, who then cultivates it further and passes it on. It is the crystallization of power, spinning together the voices of everyone who came before. I am the eighth holder. The concept was staggering. Izuku, a boy who had spent his life analyzing quirks, breaking them down into genetics and physics, felt his scientific worldview tilt. A transferable quirk? It defied the laws of biology. And you want to give it to me? Izuku pointed to himself. But I have a quirk. You said it yourself? I'm a thermodynamic anomaly. A vessel of chaos. Precisely, All Might said. He pushed off the lamppost and sat down on the curb next to Izuku, groaning slightly as his joints popped. And that is exactly why I cannot give it to you. Not yet. Izuku blinked, confusion warring with disappointment. I don't understand. All Might sighed, looking up at the cloudy sky. One for All acts as a massive amplifier. It enhances physical attributes to godlike levels. But power requires a container. My body, he gestured to his emaciated frame, was once a fortress. Now, it is a crumbling ruin. But you, Midoriya? Your body is currently a battlefield. All Might pointed to Izuku's right arm, then his left. I watched you fight the Sludge villain. You were brilliant, but you were reckless. You were constantly shifting between extreme heat and rapid cooling. Your cells are expanding and contracting at violent rates. If I were to pour the infinite energy of One for All into you right now, the added stress wouldn't just break your bones. All Might's face grew grim. It would detonate you. The bioenergy of One for All combined with your unstable thermal regulation would likely result in a steam explosion that would leave nothing behind but your shoes. Izuku swallowed hard, the dryness in his throat flaring up. He looked at his hands. A bomb waiting to go off. So, Izuku whispered. I can't be your successor? No, All Might corrected firmly. It means you must build the vessel first. You must turn that battlefield into a machine. You have 10 months until the UA entrance exam. In that time, I will train you. I will teach you how to build a body that can withstand not only One for All but also the backlash of your own contradictory power. All Might stood up, turning to face Izuku. The hollows of his eyes seemed to burn with a blue intensity. I am offering you a path, Izuku Midoriya. It will be hell. You will bleed. You will burn. You will want to quit. But if you survive, you will be the greatest hero the world has ever seen. Do you accept? Izuku didn't hesitate. He stood up, his legs shaking but his spine straight. He clenched his fists, one hot, one cold. I'll do it. I'll turn this chaos into power. All Might grinned, a flash of his heroic persona breaking through the gloom. Excellent. Meet me tomorrow morning at Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. Bring a towel. And maybe a few gallons of water. Month 1, the garbage and the gauge. Dagoba Municipal Beach was less a park and more a graveyard for the city's refuse. Decades of ocean currents and illegal dumping had turned the pristine white sands into a mountain range of tires, rusted appliances, driftwood, and plastic waste. The smell was a potent cocktail of salt spray, rotting seaweed, and wet rust. This, All Might announced, standing atop a rusted refrigerator in his muscle form, for effect, is your gym. Izuku stared at the endless expanse of trash. He was wearing a dark blue tracksuit, a heart rate monitor strapped to his chest, and a custom-made hydration pack on his back with a tube feeding near his mouth. The aim to pass, American Dream Plan. All Might declared, holding up a stack of papers. I've adjusted it specifically for your unique physiology. Normally, this plan focuses on muscle tearing and rebuilding. For you, we are focusing on tolerance. He handed the papers to Izuku. The boy scanned them, his eyes widening. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, anaerobic hypertrophy, heavy lifting. Focus, hydroretention. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, cardiovascular endurance, high intensity. Focus, thermal venting. Sunday, rest, study and tactical analysis. Your water side draws moisture from your body, All Might explained, dropping back into his skeletal form and coughing. It's like wringing out a sponge. If the sponge is small, it dries out instantly. We need to make you a bigger sponge. More muscle mass means more water retention in the tissue. And the fire side? Izuku asked, tapping the paper. The fire side runs on calories and oxygen, All Might said. But the limiter is your skin's heat resistance. You overheat. We need to improve your body's cooling efficiency. You need to run until your blood boils, then cool it down, over and over again. Tempering steel. The training began immediately, and it was brutal. The first task was moving a large, waterlogged truck tire across the sand. For a normal person, it was heavy. For Izuku, All Might added a condition: keep your left side active. Keep a layer of water coating your left arm. All Might shouted from his lawn chair. Don't shoot it. Just hold it. Sustain the surface tension. Izuku grunted, heaving the tire. His left arm was coated in a shimmering film of water. It required constant mental focus. It felt like holding a muscle flexed for hours. The water drew from his reserves. 10 minutes in, his mouth was dry. 20 minutes in, his head was pounding. Drink. All Might commanded. Izuku sucked on the hydration tube, the electrolyte solution flooding his system. Again. By the afternoon they switched. Now Izuku had to sprint through the soft sand, dragging a refrigerator strapped to his waist. Ignite the right. All Might yelled. Let the heat flow through the muscles. Warm up the fibers for explosive power. Izuku's right side glowed orange under his tracksuit. The heat loosened his muscles, allowing him to move faster, but it also raised his core temperature rapidly. The sweat on his right side evaporated instantly. The duality was nauseating. His left side was shivering from the morning's water usage. His right side was burning up. He collapsed face first into the sand near sunset, vomiting clear fluid. Young Midoriya. All Might rushed over. I'm okay, Izuku wheezed, steam curling from his right ear. I just mixed them up. You lost equilibrium, All Might noted, checking his watch. You held out for 45 minutes. That's 5 minutes longer than yesterday. Izuku rolled onto his back, staring at the orange sky. It's not enough. If I want to use flash vapor in a fight, I need to be able to switch instantly. Right now there's a lag. I have to turn off the water to turn on the fire, or I hurt myself. That is the goal, All Might said, looking down at him. You are trying to drive a car with 2 engines spinning in opposite directions. The friction is what kills you. You need a clutch. A clutch. Izuku muttered, pulling out a soggy notebook from his bag. Even half dead, he was taking notes. Mental clutch. Dissociate the hemispheres. Right brain fire, left brain water. No, that's pseudoscience. It's nerve isolation. Month 3, the science of steam. School was a strange purgatory. Izuku was exhausted constantly. He slept through English. He dozed off in history. But in physics, he was wide awake. Boyle's law, the teacher droned. Pressure is inversely proportional to volume. Izuku's hand shot up. Sensei. What happens to the pressure coefficient if the liquid state is superheated instantaneously within a semi-permeable membrane? The teacher blinked. Midoriya, are you planning to build a bomb? In a manner of speaking, Izuku muttered, scribbling furiously. Lunchtime was spent in the library, not the cafeteria. Izuku was surrounded by medical journals on heatstroke and hypothermia, and engineering textbooks on steam turbines. Katsuki Bakugo watched him. The bullying had stopped. Not because Bakugo had become kind, but because the dynamic had shifted. Bakugo would stomp over to Izuku's desk, ready to start something, to demand why the nerd was so tired, why he smelled like garbage and sea salt. But he would see the look in Izuku's eyes. It wasn't the fearful, deer-in-headlights look of the past. It was a 1,000-yard stare, focused on something Bakugo couldn't see. Izuku would look through him, muttering about joules per second and hydration efficiency. It infuriated Bakugo. Deku, Bakugo slammed his hand on the library table, scorching the wood. Izuku didn't jump. He slowly looked up, dark circles under his eyes. Oh. Hi, Kaken. You're ignoring me, Bakugo accused, his voice low. You think you're better than me because you pulled a stunt with the Sludge villain? You think playing hero once makes you a contender? I'm not playing, Izuku said softly. He closed his book on advanced thermodynamics. I'm preparing. For you, eh? Bakugo scoffed. You're gonna die. You know that, right? Your quirk is a glitch. It's broken. It is, Izuku agreed, surprising Bakugo. It's broken, unstable, and dangerous. But if I can figure out how to aim the pieces when it breaks, it's powerful. Izuku stood up, gathering his books. He walked past Bakugo. I'm not trying to beat you, Kaken. Not right now. I'm trying to beat my own genetics. Bakugo stood there, smoke rising from his palms. He felt a chill that had nothing to do with Izuku's eyesight. The nerd was changing. He was hardening, and for the first time, Bakugo felt a twinge of genuine concern, not for Izuku's safety, but for his own position at the top. Month 6, the breakthrough. It happened on a rainy Tuesday. The beach was halfway cleared. Piles of tires had vanished. The burnt chassis of a sedan had been hauled away. Izuku stood in the center of a clearing, shirtless. His body had changed. The baby fat was gone, replaced by lean, whipcord muscle. Scars from minor steam burns littered his forearms, a road map of his failures. Today, we spar, All Might announced. I will be the villain. You must land a hit on me. All Might lunged, moving at a fraction of his speed, but still faster than the eye could follow. Izuku reacted on instinct. He didn't try to dodge. He threw up a wall of water with his left hand. All Might punched through it easily. The water scattered. Too slow. Liquid is heavy. It takes time to draw and shape. All Might shouted, tapping Izuku on the forehead, sending him tumbling into the sand. Izuku scrambled up, spitting sand. He's right. Water is dense. I can't block him with mass. I need a deterrent. All Might came again. Izuku ignited his right side. A stream of fire. All Might swatted it away with the wind pressure of his hand. Too weak. Fire without fuel is just a light show. Izuku gritted his teeth. Water is too slow. Fire is too weak at range. Combine them. But every time he combined them, it was an explosion. An omnidirectional blast that hurt him as much as the enemy. He needed direction. All Might wound up for a chop. Izuku took a deep breath. He visualized a gun barrel. He visualized the piston of an engine. He extended his left arm, fingers spread. He released a fine mist, not a stream, but a cloud of suspended droplets. It required less water, less time. Then, he punched through the mist with his right fist. His fire fist entered the cloud of droplets. The heat transfer was instantaneous. The droplets didn't just boil, they flashed into steam. But because Izuku was punching forward, the momentum carried the expansion outward in a cone. Thermal shot. Boom. A concentrated blast of white steam erupted from his fist, hitting All Might in the chest. It wasn't just heat, it was kinetic force. The expanding gas hit like a solid wall. All Might actually skidded back a foot. He coughed, waving the steam away. Oh ho! All Might looked at his shirt. It was damp and warm. That actually had some kick to it. Izuku stood panting, clutching his right wrist. His knuckles were red, scalded by the proximity, but he hadn't blown himself up. I used the mist as a propellant, Izuku gasped, his eyes shining. Like a shape charge. If I atomize the water first, the reaction is faster and more directional. All Might smiled, a genuine, proud smile. You're learning, my boy. You're turning the chaotic explosion into a focused weapon. But look at your hand. Izuku looked. Blisters were forming on his knuckles. You need gloves, All Might mused. Something to protect your skin from your own output. We should look into support gear designs for your application. Support gear, Izuku muttered. Mayhatsum. Power loader. He shook his head. I'll sketch something tonight. Good. Now, pick up that washing machine. We have 4 more tons to move before dinner. Month 9. The doubt. The physical transformation was undeniable. Izuku was ripped. But the mental toll was mounting. He was sitting in the Midoriya living room, icing his right shoulder while drinking a gallon of electrolyte water. Inko was in the kitchen, making katsudon. Izuku, she called out, her voice trembling slightly. You've been working so hard lately. You're barely home before dark. I have to, Mom, Izuku said, staring at the TV. A news report was showing Endeavor taking down a villain. The number 2 hero used his flames with terrifying precision. He didn't burn himself. He was a master. Inko walked into the room, wiping her hands on her apron. She sat next to him. She looked at the burns on his arms, the calluses on his palms. She reached out and touched his cheek. I pushed you to be normal for so long, she whispered. I was so relieved when the doctor said you had a quirk. But now, seeing you do this to yourself. I'm scared, Izuku. I'm scared you're going to burn away. Izuku put down the water. He looked at his mother. He saw the worry lines etched into her face, lines that he had put there. Mom, he said softly. He ignited a tiny, controlled flame on his right index finger, like a candle. Then, he swirled a tiny ring of water around it with his left. The water danced around the fire, cooling the air, keeping the flame stable. They spun in perfect harmony. I'm not going to burn away, he promised. I'm learning balance. For the first time in my life, I don't feel like I'm fighting my body. I feel like I'm driving it. He extinguished the flame and the water vanished into mist. I'm going to be a hero. Not just for me, but to show that even a contradiction can save people. Inko looked at him. She saw the steel in his eyes. She hugged him, burying her face in his shoulder. Just come home safe. That's all I ask. I will, Izuku said. But deep down, he knew the promise was fragile. The entrance exam was a month away. And All Might still hadn't given him one for all. Month 10, the morning of the exam, February 26th. The day of the UA entrance exam. The sun had not yet risen when Izuku arrived at Dagoba Beach. The air was crisp and cold. He walked to the seawall and looked out. It was gone. The mountain of trash, the tires, the rusted metal, all of it. The beach was pristine. The white sand stretched out, smooth and clean, reflecting the first rays of the dawn. The ocean waves crashed against the shore, unobstructed for the first time in decades. Standing in the center of the clean beach was All Might. Izuku ran down the stairs, his footsteps thudding on the wood, then silencing as he hit the sand. He sprinted toward his mentor. He stopped a few feet away, chest heaving, sweat dripping from his brow despite the cold. I did it, Izuku panted. I moved the last pile. The truck chassis? It's in the recycling bin. All Might turned. He looked at the beach. He looked at the boy. 10 months ago, Izuku was a scrawny, trembling child with a dangerous quirk he was afraid to use. Now, standing there in his worn-out tracksuit, he looked like a warrior. His posture was balanced. His breathing was rhythmic. His eyes were clear. You went beyond, All Might said softly. I told you to clear a path. You cleared the whole horizon. All Might transformed. The steam exploded, and the muscle form towered over Izuku. Young Midoriya. You have completed the vessel. You have tempered the steel, Izuku beamed. So, am I ready? For one for all? The question hung in the air, silencing the crashing waves. All Might's smile faltered slightly. He looked at his hand. He looked at Izuku. He had planned to give it to him today. That was the deal. But over the last 10 months, All Might had watched Izuku. He had watched him invent thermal shot. He had watched him learn to skate on water slicks. He had watched him master a power that everyone said was impossible. All Might realize something. If he gave Izuku one for all now, right before the exam, Izuku would rely on it. He would use the super strength as a crutch, and his mastery over fire and water would stagnate. Or worse, the sudden influx of power would disrupt the delicate equilibrium Izuku had fought so hard to build. No, All Might said. Izuku's smile vanished. What? I am not giving you one for all today. Izuku felt his stomach drop. But I did it. I cleared the beach. You said. I said I would train you to be a successor, All Might interrupted gently. He placed a massive hand on Izuku's shoulder. And you are. You are worthy. But Izuku, look at what you have done. All Might gestured to the beach. You moved mountains with your power. With your fire. With your water. You built this body. If I give you my power now, you will walk into that exam as All Might's successor. You will try to be me. All Might squeezed his shoulder. I want you to walk into UA High as Izuku Midoriya. I want you to pass that exam using the quirk you were born with. Show me, show the world, that you are a hero in your own right. Prove that your thermal equilibrium is strong enough to stand on its own. Izuku stared at All Might. A mix of fear and pride swirled in his chest. You want me to pass, without the secret weapon? I want you to earn your spot, All Might said firmly. Once you are enrolled, once you have proven that you don't need one for all to be a hero, then I will give it to you. It will be the reward, not the entry ticket. Izuku closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. He felt the heat in his right side and the cold in his left. He thought about Bakugo's challenge. Don't extinguish yourself. He opened his eyes. They were fierce. Okay, Izuku said. I'll do it. I'll pass. I'll blow them all away. All Might threw his head back and laughed. That's the spirit. Now go. You're going to be late. And eat this on the way. All Might shoved a bento box into Izuku's hands. High protein. High sodium. Go. The gates of UA. The massive glass structure of UA High glittered in the morning sun. It looked like a fortress, a temple to heroism. Hundreds of students were streaming through the gates, a sea of middle school uniforms. Izuku walked among them, his yellow backpack heavy on his shoulders. He felt different than the others. He wasn't walking with the arrogance of the elites, nor the anxiety of the hopefuls. He walked with the heavy, measured tread of a soldier entering a battlefield. He checked his belt. He had 4 half-liter water pouches clipped to it, allowed as support items for medical reasons, hydration. He wore fingerless gloves made of a heat-resistant polymer he'd bought online. Out of my way, Deku. The voice was a growl. Izuku didn't flinch. He stepped aside smoothly. Katsuki Bakugo walked past him, hands in his pockets. He paused for a fraction of a second. He glanced at Izuku's arms, the muscles visible even under the uniform. He sniffed the air. Izuku smelled like ozone and sea salt. Don't die, Bakugo muttered, barely audible. I won't, Izuku replied calmly. Bakugo scoffed, and kept walking. Izuku took a step forward and promptly tripped over his own shoelace. Old habits die hard. He braced for the impact with the pavement, instinctively preparing to turn his skin to water to cushion the blow. He stopped. He was floating. Are you okay? Izuku looked up. A girl with a round face and rosy cheeks was holding her hand out, her pinky finger extended. It's my quirk, she smiled, tapping his chest. Izuku's feet touched the ground gently. Sorry for using it without asking. But it's bad luck to trip on the exam day, right? You. Izuku stammered. The cool resolve of the beach evaporated in the face of talking to a girl. I'm Achiko Uraraka, she beamed. You look ready. Let's do our best. She waved and ran off toward the entrance. Izuku stood there, blinking. I talked to a girl. Well, she talked to me. But still, he slapped his cheeks with both hands. Focus. Thermal equilibrium. Control the variables. The orientation. The auditorium was dark, lit only by the spotlight on the stage. The voice hero, Present Mike, was screaming into the microphone. Welcome to my live show. Everybody say hey. Silence. Tough crowd. Present Mike shrugged. All right, listeners. Here's the deal. The practical exam is a 10-minute urban mock battle. You'll be split into battle centers A through G. Izuku looked at his exam ticket. Battle Center B. He glanced to his right. Bakugo was sitting there, looking at his own ticket. Battle Center A, TCH, Bakugo grunted. They split us up so we wouldn't kill each other. Or help each other, Izuku whispered. Don't look at me, damn nerd. The targets are robots. President Mike shouted, pointing to the screen. 3 types. 1-pointer, 2-pointer, 3-pointer. Destroy them to earn points. And there's a 4th one. The 0-pointer. It's an obstacle. No points. If you see it, run away. Excuse me. A tall boy with glasses and blue hair stood up in the middle of the auditorium. The spotlight swung to him. This pamphlet says there are 4 robots, but you've only explained 3. If this is a mistake, it's a shame on UA's reputation. And you, the boy pointed a stiff finger directly at Izuku, the curly-haired kid. You've been muttering this whole time. It's distracting. If you're here to mess around, leave immediately. Every eye in the hall turned to Izuku. Izuku shrank in his seat. Sorry. Okay. Examinee 7111. President Mike waved his hands. Nice catch. The 4th robot is just a gimmick. Like a thwomp in Mario. Avoid it and focus on the points. Plus Ultra. Battle Center B. The gates to the mock city were enormous. Izuku stood in a crowd of examinees. He saw the tall boy with glasses doing leg stretches. He saw Uraraka taking deep breaths. He reached for his water pouches. He uncapped one and took a long swig, swishing the water in his mouth before swallowing. He needed his internal reservoir at 100%. He flexed his right hand. The heat hummed under his skin. He flexed his left. The cold tingled in his fingertips. 10 months. The beach. The trash. The pain. I am not quirkless. I am not a defect. Start. President Mick's voice boomed over the loudspeakers. What are you waiting for? There are no countdowns in real battles. Go, go, go. The crowd hesitated for a split second, but Izuku Midoriya moved. He didn't run. He launched. He stomped his left foot, releasing a slick of water onto the concrete. Hydroskate. He pushed off with his right foot, igniting a burst of fire from his heel, a small explosion that acted like a rocket booster. Whoosh! He shot forward, sliding across the water slick at breakneck speed, leaving a trail of steam in his wake. He blew past the other examinees, a blur of green and gray. What was that? Someone shouted. Izuku didn't look back. He was already entering the city. He saw a 1-pointer, a unicycle robot with machine guns. It locked onto him. Target acquired. Izuku didn't slow down. He skated directly at it. As he got close, he twisted his body. He shut off the water. He routed all his metabolic energy to his right arm, temperature rising. 200 degrees. 300 degrees. He slammed his burning palm into the robot's chassis. Flash meltdown. The metal glowed cherry red instantly. Izuku sidestepped as the robot swiped at him. He snapped his fingers with his left hand, splashing a small amount of water onto the superheated metal. Crack! Thermal shock. The metal shattered like glass. The robot collapsed into a pile of scrap. 1 point, Izuku breathed, steam venting from his nose. He looked deeper into the city. This is it, he whispered to himself. I'm here. The gates to Battle Center B groaned, the heavy industrial gears grinding against one another as they began to part. The sound was a low, resonant thrum that vibrated in the chests of the 40-odd examinees gathered before it. To most, it was the sound of intimidation. To Izuku Midoriya, it was the starting pistol. Start! President Mick's voice cracked through the air like a thunderclap, amplified by speakers hidden throughout the mock city. What are you waiting for? There are no countdowns in real battles. Go, go, go! The crowd of middle schoolers hesitated, a collective flinch of nerves. They were processing the command, their brains lagging behind the reality of the test. But Izuku was already moving. He didn't run. Running was inefficient. Running meant friction against the ground. Running meant wasting energy on vertical oscillation. Izuku dropped into a crouch, his left hand slapping the pavement. Hydroskate, 0 friction. A sheen of water, slick and shimmering, erupted from his palm, coating the asphalt in front of him. In the same heartbeat, he kicked back with his right heel. A concentrated burst of fire exploded from his foot. Not a flamethrower, but a pulse, like the exhaust of a jet engine. Boom! He launched. He tore past the bewildered students, a green and black blur trailing white steam. He hit the water slick and accelerated, his boots hydroplaning perfectly. He was surfing on land, propelled by thermal expansion. The wind whipped against his face, cooling his cheeks. His eyes were wide, taking in the data of the environment. Concrete buildings. Narrow alleys. Good for cornering. Open plazas. Good for large targets. He was the first one through the gate. He was the first one into the city. A mechanical whirring sound to his left. A three-pointer. A massive, treaded drone with targeting sensors glowing an angry red. Target located, the robot synthesized. It raised a cannon arm. Izuku didn't slow down. He couldn't stop his momentum that easily anyway. He leaned hard to the left, his hand trailing water to steer, carving a sharp arc. He drifted around the robot's aim. Think. Analyze. Dismantle. It's a three-pointer. Heavily armored. My fire won't melt the chassis fast enough. My water cutter won't penetrate the thick plating without time to pressurize. But it has joints. It has wiring. Izuku sped past the robot, then slammed his right hand onto the ground to brake, melting the asphalt into sticky tar to stop his slide. He was behind it now. The robot began to turn its turret. Izuku lunged. He grabbed the exposed hydraulic piston on the robot's rear leg. Thermal shock, flash freeze / flash fry. It was a technique he had perfected on the rusted axles of trucks at Dagoba Beach. His left hand gripped the metal, sucking every ounce of heat out of it, flash freezing the steel until it was brittle and covered in frost. A split second later, his right hand slammed onto the same spot, delivering a payload of intense, localized heat. The laws of physics took over. The metal, contracted by the cold, could not expand fast enough to handle the heat. Crack! The sound was like a gunshot. The piston shattered. The robot lurched, its leg collapsing. It listed to the side, sparks flying. Izuku didn't wait for it to power down. He ignited his fist and punched the exposed wiring in the broken joint, frying the motherboard. The lights in the robot's eyes died. 3 points, Izuku exhaled. He checked his internal gauges. Hydration, 98%. Core temp, 37.2 degrees Celsius. Pulse, 140. He turned back to the street. The other examinees were just catching up, screaming battle cries. I have the lead, Izuku muttered, uncorking a water pouch on his belt and taking a sip. I need to keep it. 5 minutes remaining. The mock city was a chaotic symphony of destruction. Explosions rocked the streets. Lasers cut through the air. A boy with a tail was smashing a one-pointer into a wall. A girl with vines for hair was dismantling a two-pointer with terrifying efficiency. Izuku was in the zone. He had adopted a guerrilla warfare style. He would skate through the streets, drawing the attention of robots, clustering them together. When he had a group, he would unleash a steam screen, a massive cloud of fog created by vaporizing his sweat, to blind them. Then, he would strike from within the fog. Clang. Hiss. Boom. Another two-pointer went down, its internal engine flooded with water and then boiled from the inside out. 28 points, Izuku panted. He wiped sweat from his brow. His right sleeve was smoking. The heat was building up. He was running hot. I need to vent. He paused in an alleyway, leaning against a cool brick wall. He deactivated his fireside completely, letting his left side's passive cooling take over. He shivered as the chill spread through his chest, balancing out the feverish heat of his right side. That kid! Izuku looked up. On a rooftop nearby, the boy with glasses, Tenya Ida, was observing him. Ida had engine mufflers sticking out of his calves. He had just kicked a robot's head clean off. He uses the environment, Ida muttered to himself, adjusting his glasses. He moves like a vehicle. His quirk seems dangerous to himself, yet he manages it with the precision of a surgeon. Impressive. Ida turned and sped off. But mere efficiency isn't enough. I must demonstrate superior speed, Izuku pushed off the wall. 30 seconds of cooling. That's enough. He drank another pouch of water. Hydration, 60%. I'm drinking faster than I expected. The steam screen uses too much moisture. He skated back into the fray. He turned a corner and nearly collided with a laser beam. Merci! Cried a blond boy with a sparkling navel laser. Yuga Aoyama struck a pose as a robot exploded behind him. My sparkle is undeniable, Nan? Watch your six! Izuku shouted, sliding past him. A one-pointer was rolling up behind Aoyama. Izuku didn't have time to stop. He extended his right hand. Pyrojet. A concentrated ball of fire shot from his palm. It hit the robot's sensor array, melting the glass and blinding it. The robot spun out of control and crashed into a lamppost. You're welcome! Izuku yelled, already moving to the next target. Oh! A rival in brilliance! Aoyama called after him. Izuku checked the time on a digital billboard. 2 minutes left. I have 45 points. That should be passing. But the cutoff is usually high. I need 50 to be safe. He rounded the corner into the central plaza. It was crowded. Uraraka was there, touching robots and watching them float helplessly into the sky, then releasing them to crash down. She looked nauseous, holding a hand to her mouth, but she was effective. Okay, Izuku thought. One last push, and then, the world ended. The Titan. It didn't start with a sound. It started with a vibration. Izuku felt it first. His hydrokinesis gave him a faint sense of the water in the pipes beneath the street. The water was trembling. Rippling. Then came the boom. Tum. The pavement jumped 3 inches into the air. Glass shattered in the windows of the mock office buildings. What is that? Someone screamed. At the far end of the main avenue, the buildings seemed to part. Rising from the dust and debris was a metal hand the size of a bus. It slammed onto the asphalt, crushing a traffic light like it was made of paper. Then the head appeared. A towering, monolithic dome with 3 glowing red eyes. The zero-pointer. It was colossal. It dwarfed the buildings around it. It had to be 20 stories tall. It moved with a grinding, terrifying inevitability. It simply drove forward, its massive treads churning up the road, smashing through skyscrapers as if they were made of cardboard. Debris rained down. Massive chunks of concrete, steel beams, and shattered glass fell into the plaza. The examinees froze. The primal brain took over. Run. It's huge. That's not a test. That's a monster. Run for your lives. The crowd broke. Panic set in. Students scrambled over each other, quirks forgotten, survival instinct reigning supreme. They flooded away from the giant, a tide of terrified children. Izuku stood frozen. His neck craned back, looking up at the metal god. That's impossible. How can we fight that? We can't. President Mike said to avoid it. It's a gimmick. An obstacle. He took a step back. His legs were shaking. Run. Just run. You have 45 points. You pass. Don't be a hero. Be smart. He turned to flee. Ow! A cry of pain. Faint buried under the sound of crushing concrete. Izuku stopped. He looked back. Through the dust, through the forest of legs running away, he saw her. Achiko Uraraka. She was on the ground. A piece of rubble had fallen on her leg, pinning her. She was struggling to lift it, but she was exhausted, her face pale from nausea. The zero-pointer was looming over her. Its massive tread was descending. In 10 seconds she would be crushed. Help! She whimpered, reaching out. The other students were running past her. Even Ida, the strict rule follower, was sprinting away, shouting for everyone to evacuate. He hadn't seen her. Izuku looked at the robot. He looked at Uraraka. It's an obstacle. There are no points, but she's going to die. The logic in his brain, the scientific analysis, the careful resource management, it all shattered. His body moved on its own. Hey! Izuku screamed, though no one heard him. He slammed both hands onto the ground. I can't lift that rubble from here. I can't push the robot back. I have to kill it. How do you kill a mountain? You blow it up. Izuku didn't skate this time. He needed verticality. He looked at the building next to the robot. It was half collapsed, providing a ramp. He sprinted. Thermal equilibrium, overdrive. He stopped regulating. He opened the valves. His right side roared to life, flames licking up his arm, scorching his sleeve off entirely. His left side began to draw moisture from the air, from the ground, from his own blood. He hit the building's slanted roof. He ignited his feet. Boom! He launched himself into the air. He was flying. The wind roared in his ears. He was soaring toward the face of the zero-pointer. Inside the observation room, the teachers watched the screens. Oh ho! All Might leaned forward, gripping the railing. There he goes. That takes guts, Midnight murmured. But what is he going to do? That robot is heavily armored. He has a dual emitter type, Cementos noted. But raw firepower won't pierce that plating in time. Izuku was midair. He was level with the robot's face. The massive red eyes turned toward him. Target acquired, the robot boomed. The sound vibrated in Izuku's bones. Izuku wasn't aiming for the face. He was aiming for the intake. On the robot's shoulder, massive vents were sucking in air to cool its titanic engines. Heat shimmered above them. That's the weak point. Engines create heat. They need cooling. If I disrupt the thermal exchange... Izuku landed on the robot's shoulder. The metal was hot, burning through his boots. He scrambled toward the vent, gripping the grates. It was huge. A drop into darkness, with the roar of a jet turbine below. This is going to hurt, Izuku whispered. He grabbed the grate with his left hand. The metal was thick steel, hydro cutter, max pressure, a blade of water, thin as a wire and pressurized to 50,000 psi, erupted from his fingers. It shrieked as it sliced through the hinges of the grate. Izuku ripped the metal covering away. He stared down into the glowing red heart of the machine. The engine. He stood on the edge of the abyss. Equilibrium. He held his hands out, palms facing the engine. He closed his eyes. He visualized every drop of water in his body. The water in the pouches on his belt. The water in the air. He pulled it all. A sphere of water, massive and swirling, formed between his hands. It was gallons. His skin went gray. His lips cracked. His vision blurred. He was dehydrating himself to critical levels. He dropped the water into the intake. The water fell, hitting the superheated engine core. Step 1, Introduction of coolant. The robot shuddered. The engine whined as the cold water hit the hot turbines. Step 2, Flash expansion. Izuku screamed. He thrust his right hand into the hole. Super move, flash vapor cannon. He didn't just let the engine heat the water. He added his own fire. He pumped a blast of white-hot intensity into the mix, forcing the reaction to happen instantaneously. Water expands 1,700 times when it turns to steam. Izuku had just dumped 5 gallons of water into a confined space and superheated it. The result was physics. Violent, angry physics. KDOM. The sound wasn't an explosion. It was a rupture. The zero-pointer bulged. The metal plating on its chest groaned, rivets popping like bullets. Then it burst. A column of high-pressure steam erupted from the robot's shoulder, blasting Izuku into the sky. But the damage was done. The internal pressure blew the engine apart. The shockwave tore through the robot's chassis. The head was blown clean off its hinges. The massive arm that was threatening Uraraka went limp and fell backward. The Titan began to fall. Izuku was tumbling through the air. He was hundreds of feet up. His vision was black. His tongue felt like sandpaper. He couldn't feel his arms. I did it, but I have no water left. He tried to activate a water jet to cushion his fall. Nothing happened. Just a puff of dry air. He tried to use fire to slow his descent. A weak spark flickered and died. He had overheated his conduits. He was falling. Gravity took hold. The ground was rushing up to meet him. Ah! This is the drawback. He saw the concrete getting closer. He saw the horrified faces of the students below. I'm sorry, Mom. I pushed too hard. He closed his eyes, accepting the impact. Slap. A hand struck his cheek. Suddenly, the rushing wind stopped. The crushing weight of gravity vanished. Izuku floated. He opened his eyes weakly. He was hovering 3 feet above the ground. Release. He dropped onto the pavement with a dull thud. Beside him, Achiko Uraraka was heaving, clutching her stomach. She had crawled out from the rubble, ignored her pain, and slapped him just in time. Are you she retched. A rainbow of vomit escaped her. Okay? Izuku couldn't answer. He was gasping for air, but his throat was too dry. His skin was fever-hot to the touch. He curled into a ball, his body spasming. The silence in the plaza was deafening. The students slowly crept out of hiding. They looked at the decapitated, smoking ruin of the zero-pointer. They looked at the boy lying in a heap on the ground. He destroyed it, someone whispered. One hit. He took it out in one hit. Is he dead? Time's up. President Mick's voice echoed, signaling the end of the exam. Izuku let out a wheezing breath. His consciousness was fading. Did I pass? I have points, but I broke the rules. I fought the obstacle. A shadow fell over him. Goodness gracious, a kindly, elderly voice clucked. You really did a number on yourself, didn't you, Sonny? Recovery girl. She knelt beside him. She touched his forehead. Burning up. Severe dehydration. Muscle tearing. You're a mess. She pulled out a syringe, and for drip. We need fluids in you, immediately. Someone get a stretcher. Robots with medical crosses painted on them rolled up. As they lifted Izuku onto the stretcher, Tenya Ida stepped forward. He looked at Izuku, then at the robot, then at Uraraka who was being treated for her leg. Ida's fists clenched. I ran, Ida thought, shame burning in his chest. I analyzed the situation, determined there was no profit in fighting, and I ran. But Ida looked at Izuku's scorched arm. He jumped. He didn't hesitate. To save her, Ida bowed deeply as the stretcher passed. It was a sign of respect that Izuku was too unconscious to see. 1 week later, the waiting was worse than the training. Izuku sat at the dinner table, staring at a piece of fish. He had fully recovered physically, thanks to Recovery Girl and a week of intense hydration, but mentally, he was a wreck. Izuku, honey, please eat, Inko said, refilling his water glass. I failed, Mom, Izuku murmured. I know I got combat points, 45 I think. But I destroyed the zero-pointer. That might disqualify me. Property damage. Recklessness. And I ended the exam on a stretcher. You don't know that, Inko soothed. You did your best. My best broke me, Izuku said, clenching his fist. All Might told me to manage my equilibrium. In the end, I had to break it to win. Maybe I'm not ready. The doorbell rang. Inko jumped. I'll get it. She ran to the door. Izuku heard a gasp, then the sound of tearing paper. Inko walked back into the kitchen. She was pale. She held a heavy, wax-sealed envelope. It's from Yue, she whispered. Izuku took the envelope. His hands, one hot, one cold, trembled. He walked to his room. He sat at his desk. He stared at the seal. This is it. He tore it open. A small metal disc fell out and clattered onto the desk. A hologram projector? BZZT. A beam of light shot up. A projection appeared on the wall. I am here. Izuku fell off his chair. All Might? The hologram of All Might was wearing a yellow suit that looked 3 sizes too small. He leaned into the camera. Ahem. Yes. It is I. I am projecting as a hologram. All Might cleared his throat. Young Midoriya. It has been a week. You are probably wondering why I haven't contacted you. The truth is, I am a new teacher at Yue High. I was busy with paperwork. A teacher? Izuku gasped. Now to the results. All Might held up a clipboard. Izuku Midoriya. Written exam, perfect score. Impressive. You really know your quirk theory. All Might flipped a page. Practical exam. Villain points, 45. A respectable score. Most years, this would be enough to pass on its own. Izuku let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. I passed? But... All Might shouted, pointing at the camera. The entrance exam is not simply about destroying robots. A hero's job is to save people. How could a hero course reject someone who saves others and does the right thing? The video changed. It showed the footage of Uraraka stuck under the rubble. It showed the other students running, and it showed Izuku. The green blur launching into the sky. The steam explosion. The sacrifice. This is a job where you risk your life to put your money where your mouth is. All Might declared. Another video clip played. It was Uraraka, standing in the UA office, pleading with present Mike. Please! Can I give him some of my points? He saved me. He caught me when I fell. He would have had more points if he hadn't stopped to help me. Izuku's eyes watered. She tried to give me her points? You don't need her points, young Midoriya. All Might grinned. Because the judges look for more than just combat ability. We look for rescue points. A scoreboard appeared. Izuku Midoriya. Villain points, 45. Rescue points, 60. Total, 105. 60? Izuku shrieked. By risking your own safety to save a comrade against an insurmountable foe, you demonstrated the essence of a pro-hero. All Might slammed his fist on the desk. You pass. With flying colors. You ranked first in the exam. All Might extended his hand toward the camera. Come, Izuku Midoriya. This is your Hero Academia. The hologram faded. Izuku sat in the dark room. The silence returned. He looked at his hands. He had broken his equilibrium. He had hurt himself. He had almost failed, but he had saved her. Tears streamed down his face. They boiled on his right cheek and froze on his left. Mom! He shouted, throwing the door open. MOM. UA High Class 1A Orientation. April arrived with a shower of cherry blossoms. Izuku stood before the massive door labeled 1A. It was huge, tall enough for a giant. He took a deep breath. He adjusted his red tie. I made it. I'm here. Don't be weird. Don't mutter. Just be cool. He slid the door open. Get your feet off the desk. Ha! You trying to tell me what to do, Four Eyes? Izuku froze. Inside, Tenya Ida was chopping his hand in the air, scolding Katsuki Bakugo, who had his feet propped up on the desk, looking bored and murderous. Oh no. It's the two scariest people from the exam. Ida noticed the door opening. He spun around. Ah. It is you. Ida marched toward Izuku. The room went silent. Bakugo looked over, his eyes narrowing. I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy. Ida bowed stiffly. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Izuku stammered. Midoriya, Ida said solemnly. I must apologize. In the exam, I misjudged you. I thought you were merely reckless. But you perceived the true nature of the test, the rescue component, while I was blind to it. You were the better hero. I didn't really know. Izuku waved his hands. DKU. Bakugo stood up. He kicked his desk away. He stomped over to Izuku. You got in, Bakugo growled. And you got first place. Izuku flinched, but he stood his ground. Yeah. I did. Bakugo glared at him. Smoke curled from his palms. Don't think this means you've won. You just got lucky with a big target. I'm still gonna crush you. But there was no bite in it. It was a standard threat. Bakugo turned and walked back to his seat. Oh. It's the curly-haired boy. Izuku turned. Uraraka was beaming at him. You passed. I'm so glad. My name is Achiko Uraraka. Thanks for saving me. You're welcome. Izuku turned beet red. If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave. A tired, monotone voice came from the floor. The class froze. Lying in a yellow sleeping bag, looking like a giant caterpillar, was a man with messy black hair and bloodshot eyes. He sipped a juice pouch. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down, the man said, unzipping the bag and standing up. He wore black clothes and a capture scarf. Time is limited. You kids lack rationality. He stared at them. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Teacher? The class thought collectively. He looks like a hobo. Aizawa reached into his sleeping bag and pulled out a gym uniform. Put these on and meet me on the grounds, he said. We're doing a Quirk apprehension test. A test? Uraraka asked. What about the ceremony? The guidance counselor meeting? Aizawa turned, his eyes cold. If you want to be heroes, you don't have time for such leisurely events. UA is known for its freestyle education. That applies to the teachers as well. He looked directly at Izuku. Softball throw. Standing long jump. 50-meter dash. You did these in middle school without quirks. Today you use your quirks. Aizawa grinned, a terrifying expression. And whoever comes in last place will be judged to have no potential, and will be expelled immediately. The class gasped. Expelled? Uraraka cried. But it's the first day. Welcome to the hero course, Aizawa said. Izuku swallowed hard. He looked at his classmates. Bakugo with his explosions. Ida with his engines. Uraraka with gravity. A guy with half-white, half-red hair sitting silently in the back, staring at his desk. Izuku clenched his fists. Test number 1. Survival. Thermal equilibrium. Don't fail me now. The locker room smelled of new rubber and nervous sweat. It was a scent Izuku Midoriya was becoming intimately familiar with. He pulled the blue UA gym uniform over his head, the fabric cool and synthetic against his skin. He adjusted the compression sleeves he wore on his arms, black, heat-resistant fabric for his right, and a moisture-wicking, insulated fabric for his left. They were prototypes, hasty purchases from a Quirk support website, but they were better than nothing. Man, I'm nervous. Izuku turned. A boy with bright red, spiked hair was grinning at him, showing off rows of shark-like teeth. I didn't think we'd be tested right out of the gate. I'm Eijiro Kirishima, by the way. Izuku Midoriya, Izuku replied, forcing a smile. He clipped his utility belt around his waist. It held 4 pouches of water. I guess it makes sense. UA is the top hero school. They don't waste time. Whoa, dude! Is that water? A boy with blonde hair and a black lightning bolt streak leaned in. Denki Kaminari. You thirsty or something? It's fuel, Izuku explained, tapping the pouch. My quirk runs on hydration. If I run dry, I pass out. Hardcore, Kaminari nodded. I just short-circuit if I go too hard. We all got our limits, huh? Izuku looked around the room. It was filled with impressive physiques and visible mutations. There was a boy with 6 arms, Shoji, a boy with a bird head, Tokoemi, and a boy who looked like he was made of rock, Koda. But Izuku's eyes were drawn to the corner. Standing alone, changing silently, was a boy with hair split perfectly down the middle, white on the right, red on the left. Shoto Todoroki. He was the one who had entered through recommendations. The elite of the elite. As if sensing the gaze, Todoroki turned. His eyes, one gray, one turquoise, locked onto Izuku. It wasn't a friendly look. It wasn't even curious. It was cold. Analytically cold. Todoroki's gaze swept over Izuku's arms, noting the different compression sleeves, the scars on the right arm from heat burns, and the slightly paler complexion of the left. For a second, Izuku felt like he was being dissected. Todoroki's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of something dark passing through them. Then, he turned away, slamming his locker shut. Let's go, Todoroki said, his voice flat. The teacher is waiting. The PE grounds. The sun was high and unforgiving. The heat radiated off the dirt track, creating mirages in the distance. For most students, it was uncomfortable. For Izuku, it was free energy. His right side hummed, absorbing the ambient thermal radiation, keeping his internal furnace primed. Shota Aizawa stood before them, his posture slouched, looking more like a man who had just rolled out of a gutter than a prestigious educator. He held a digital device in one hand and a softball in the other. A Quirk apprehension test, Aizawa repeated. But sensei. Achiko Uraraka piped up, raising her hand. What about the entrance ceremony? The orientation? We're going to miss them. Aizawa turned his head slowly, his black hair falling over his face. If you're going to become a hero, you don't have time for such leisurely events. He turned fully to address the class, his expression grave. As selling point is how unrestricted its school traditions are. That's also how the teachers run their classes. You kids have been doing these standard physical fitness tests since junior high, right? But you were never allowed to use your quirks. The country is still trying to pretend everyone is created equal by averaging out the data. It's illogical. Aizawa tossed the ball lightly in the air. Bakugo, Katsuki Bakugo, who had been glaring at the back of Izuku's head, snapped to attention. You finished first in the practical exam, Aizawa said. In junior high, what was your best result for the softball throw? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Then try it with your quirk. Aizawa pointed to the circle painted on the ground. You can do whatever you want, as long as you stay in the circle. Hurry up. Give it all you've got, Bakugo smirked. He stretched his shoulders, the joints popping audibly. He walked into the circle. He picked up the ball. He looked at it like it was an enemy. He wound up. Dai! Boom! A massive explosion erupted from his palm as he threw. The blast wave kicked up dust, and the ball shot into the sky like a mortar shell, leaving a trail of smoke. The class watched, mouths agape, as the ball vanished into the stratosphere. Aizawa held up his device. It beeped. He turned the screen to the class. 705.2 meters. Whoa! Kaminari shouted. Over 700 meters? That's insane! This looks fun! Cried Mina Ishido, the pink-skinned girl. We can use our quirks as much as we want? This is what I'm talking about. Siro cheered. The atmosphere lightened. The students were excited. They were finally free to show off. Fun? Aizawa's voice cut through the excitement like a knife. The class quieted down instantly. You have 3 years to become a hero, Aizawa said softly. Will you have an attitude like that during a crisis? Fun? He smiled. It was a wide, predatory grin that didn't reach his eyes. All right. Whoever comes in last place in all 8 tests will be judged to have no potential, and will be punished with expulsion. Hiya? The collective scream echoed across the campus. Expelled? Uraraka cried, her hands gripping her cheeks. But it's the first day. That's too unreasonable. Natural disasters, Aizawa listed. Big accidents. Selfish villains. Calamities whose time or place can't be predicted. Japan is covered in unreasonableness. It is a hero's job to overturn those situations. He pushed his hair back. If you wanted to go hang out at Mickey D's after school, you're in the wrong place. For the next 3 years, Yui will do everything it can to crush you. So, go beyond. Plus ultra, he beckoned with a finger. Overcome it with all you've got. Izuku swallowed hard. The saliva in his throat was thick. Expulsion. He looked at the others. They were all powerful. Bakugo was a prodigy. Todoroki was a recommendation student. Ida had engines in his legs. Even Mineta, the small boy, seemed confident in his bouncing spheres. I have to control it, Izuku told himself. I can't blow myself up like in the exam. If I injure myself, I fail. If I fail, I'm gone. All Might's training, remember the beach. Remember the balance. Test 1, 50-meter dash. The students were called up in pairs. Ida and Azuri, Aizawa called. Tenya Ida crouched low, his engines revving. Virum. Virum. Tsuyu Azuri, a girl with frog-like features, hopped into position. Start. Whoosh. Ida was a blur. His engine spat blue flames, and he crossed the line in 3.04 seconds. Azuri hopped across in 5.58. Midoriya and Bakugo. Izuku froze. Of course. The universe had a sense of humor. He walked to the line. Bakugo stood next to him, vibrating with intensity. Don't think you can beat me just because you got lucky with a robot, Bakugo hissed, not looking at him. I'm gonna leave you in the dust, Deku. Izuku took a deep breath. Speed. I need propulsion. He looked at the track. It was dirt. Not ideal for sliding. If I use fire alone, I burn my shoes. If I use water alone, I slip. Combination. He crouched. He placed his left hand near his rear foot. Start. Bakugo exploded forward. Blast rush turbo. He kept his hands behind him, firing explosions to propel himself. Izuku didn't run. He stomped. Hydrojet launch. He released a high-pressure burst of water from his left sole to lift him slightly off the ground, reducing friction. Simultaneously, he ignited a focused jet of fire from his right heel. Hiss boom. Steam erupted behind him. It wasn't as flashy as Bakugo's explosions, but the thrust was immense. He shot forward, hovering an inch off the ground on a cushion of superheated vapor. He was fast. He was keeping pace with Bakugo. Bakugo glanced sideways, his eyes widening in shock. What? Izuku gritted his teeth. Maintain the output. Don't overheat. Don't overheat. They crossed the line almost simultaneously. Aizawa looked at the timer. Bakugo, 4.13 seconds. Midoriya, 4.18 seconds. Izuku skidded to a halt, kicking up a cloud of dust. He panted, checking his arms. No burns. Just warmth. TCH, Bakugo spat, turning away. Too slow. But his hands were shaking. He almost matched me. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku held the dynamometer. He squeezed. This was harder. His quirk didn't enhance his raw muscle strength directly like One for All would have. But All Might's training had turned him into a powerhouse naturally. He channeled a small amount of heat into his forearm muscles, warming the fibers to maximize their elasticity. Beep. 56 kilograms. Whoa! 540 kilograms? Izuku looked over. Shoji, the boy with multiple arms, had just crushed the machine. What are you, a gorilla? Ciro laughed. Izuku looked at his 56. It was above average for a human, but compared to the monsters in this class. He looked at Todoroki. The dual-haired boy held the device. Frost crept over the handle. Beep. 90 kilograms. Todoroki dropped the device without looking at the score. Test 3. Standing long jump. This was Izuku's territory. He stood at the line. He remembered the 0-pointer. He remembered the feeling of flight. Don't use full power. Just a hop. He channeled fire to his feet. He jumped. Boom. A controlled explosion under his soles sent him sailing over the sandbox entirely. He landed in the grass on the other side, rolling to absorb the impact. Cleared the sandbox. Kaminari whistled. Man, Midoriya really is like a rocket. Bakugo cleared it too, using his explosions to fly. Aoyama used his naval laser to propel himself backward, and gracefully landed. Todoroki didn't jump. He simply stomped his right foot. A massive pillar of ice erupted, creating a slide that carried him over the pit. He landed smoothly, the ice shattering behind him. Izuku watched him. He only uses the ice. Even though the doctor said he has fire on his left, he hasn't used a single spark. Test 4, repeated sidesteps. This was a struggle. Mineta, the great boy, dominated by using the balls on his head to bounce back and forth rapidly. Izuku tried to use water to slide, but the rhythm was hard to maintain. He ended up slipping once, costing him time. Result, above average, but not top tier. Interlude. Izuku took a swig from his water pouch. He was sweating. The heat from his fire quirk was cumulative. He needed to cool down. Midoriya-chan, Tsuyu Ajiri hopped over. You have a really versatile quirk. Fire and water? That's rare, Kero. Oh, thanks, Ajiri. Izuku stammered. Call me Tsuyu, she said bluntly. But isn't it hard? You look like you're running a fever. I have to manage my temperature, Izuku admitted, wiping his forehead. If I get too hot, I get heat stroke. If I use too much water, I dehydrate. Like a radiator, Tsuyu nodded. Ribbit. Midoriya! Ida marched over, chopping the air. Your performance in the 50-meter dash was exemplary. Utilizing steam pressure for propulsion. Highly efficient. Thanks, Ida-kun, Izuku smiled. He felt eyes on him again. He turned. Todoroki was watching. He stood apart from the class, isolated. He was looking at Izuku's water pouch. He sees me managing it, Izuku thought. He knows the drawback because he lives it. Test 5, the ball throw. This was the big one. The one where you could truly show power. Uraraka stepped up. Good luck, Uraraka-san! Izuku cheered. She smiled, took a deep breath, and threw the ball. As it left her hand, she tapped it with her fingertips. The ball floated. And floated. And floated. It kept going, bobbing gently in the air, drifting higher and higher until it was a speck. Aizawa showed the screen. Infinity. Infinity? The class screamed. That's cheating. Kaminari yelled. No, that's amazing. Midoriya, Aizawa called. The laughter died down. Izuku walked to the circle. He picked up the ball. This was it. His other scores were good, top 10 probably. But to secure his spot, to prove he wasn't a liability, he needed a home run. He looked at the field. 700 meters was the beat to score. I can do it, Izuku thought. I can use the flash vapor cannon. The same move I used on the robot. He gripped the ball. He began to draw moisture into his left palm. He began to heat up his right arm. I need a lot of power. All of it. His arm began to glow. Steam hissed from his pores. The air around him shimmered. He's gonna do it again, someone whispered. The robot move. Izuku wound up. He planted his feet. He prepared to unleash a blast that would shatter his arm and launch the ball into orbit. Smash! Suddenly, the heat vanished. The water in his palm evaporated harmlessly. His strength cut out. He threw the ball like a normal human. It plopped onto the grass. 46 meters. Huh! Izuku blinked. He tried to ignite his arm. Nothing. My quirk, it's gone. He looked around. Aizawa was standing there. His hair was floating, defying gravity. His scarf was floating. And his eyes were glowing a terrifying red. I erased your quirk, the class gasped. Those goggles. Izuku muttered. You're the erasure hero, Eraserhead. Eraser who? The students whispered. Never heard of him. Aizawa stepped forward, his scarf unwinding like a serpent. He got into Izuku's personal space. That entrance exam was definitely not rational enough, Aizawa said, his voice dripping with disdain. Even a kid like you was accepted. A kid like me? I saw what happened, Aizawa said. You destroyed the zero-pointer. And in doing so, you destroyed your own body. You ended up on a stretcher. Aizawa narrowed his eyes. You have a powerful quirk. A dual quirk. But you have no control. You rely on catastrophic release. You plan to break your arm again just to throw this ball, don't you? Izuku flinched. I have to get a good score. And then what? Aizawa snapped. If a villain attacks after you throw the ball, who saves you? You become a defenseless doll. Aizawa leaned in closer. There is an old hero. He was a legend. He saved thousands. But you know what? He didn't destroy himself to do it. You are not him. Izuku knew who he meant. All Might. If you can't control your power, you are a liability. I don't need liabilities in my class. Aizawa blinked. His hair fell down. The red glow faded. I've returned your quirk. You have one more throw. Get it over with so I can expel you. Aizawa turned and walked back to the sideline. Izuku stood in the circle, trembling. He's right. If I use 100% I break. If I use 0% I fail. I need something in between. Thermal equilibrium isn't just about balancing heat and cold. It's about balancing output and safety. He looked at the ball. I don't need to explode my whole arm. I just need to propel the ball. Focus. Concentrate the reaction. He remembered the science of steam. Pressure. Volume. Temperature. If I can find the steam, the pressure increases. I don't need a cannon. I need a rifle. He picked up the ball. He's gonna fail, Bakugo muttered from the sidelines. He's shaking. I don't know, Ida said. Look at his eyes. Izuku wasn't looking at Aizawa. He was looking at the horizon. He gripped the ball in his right hand. He began to sweat, deliberately. He flooded his palm with water from his left side's reserves, transferring it internally. Then, he heated his fingertips. He didn't heat the whole arm. Just the tips of his index and middle fingers. He pressed the ball against his palm, creating a seal. Heat the water behind the ball. Create a pressure chamber in the grip. He wound up. His form was perfect. He threw. At the very last moment, the instant the ball was leaving his hand, he ignited the water trapped between his palm and the ball. Steam shot, point blank. Pop. It sounded like a pistol shot. A tiny, concentrated explosion of steam occurred right at his fingertips. The ball screamed into the air. It broke the sound barrier. A cone of white vapor formed around it. Izuku didn't break his arm. But the recoil snapped his finger back violently. It was purple and throbbing. He stood there, panting. The ball soared. And soared. Beep. Aizawa looked at the device. His eyebrows raised slightly. He turned the screen to the class. 705.3 meters. Silence. Then chaos. He beat Bakugo by 0.1 meters. Kaminari shrieked. That was awesome. Uraraka cheered. Izuku clenched his throbbing finger. He turned to Aizawa. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his chin, but he was smiling. A fierce, defiant smile. Sensei. Izuku gasped. I can still move. Aizawa looked at the boy. He looked at the swollen finger. He looked at the score. A small, creepy smile touched his lips. This kid. The aftermath. DKU. The scream ripped through the air. Katsuki Bakugo was running. Explosions popped in his hands. His face was a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. What the hell was that? Tell me what you did, you bastard! He was fast. He was going to kill him. Izuku braced himself, raising his arms. Zip. Cloth wrapped around Bakugo. It tightened, binding his arms to his torso. Bakugo fell forward, face planting into the dirt. Why? What is this cloth? It's stiff. It's a capture weapon made of carbon fiber and a special metal alloy, Aizawa mumbled, holding the other end of the scarf. Stand down. Aizawa glared at Bakugo. His hair was floating again. Don't make me use my quirk so much. I have dry eye. Whatever. Bakugo struggled, glaring at Izuku. He cheated. He's been hiding that power for years. He's been laughing at me. I wasn't hiding it. Izuku shouted back, surprising everyone. Bakugo froze. I wasn't hiding it, Kaken. Izuku stepped forward, clutching his injured hand. I couldn't control it. I was scared of it. But I'm not scared anymore. Izuku looked Bakugo in the eye. I'm going to learn to use this. And I'm going to catch up to you. Bakugo stared at him. The old Deku, the pebble, was gone. This was someone else. Aizawa released the cloth. We're wasting time. Next test. The rest of the tests. The sit UPS. Izuku did well. The seated toe touch, terrible. His muscles were too bulky and stiff from the beach training. The long distance run. Izuku paced himself, using a low-level steam vent to maintain speed without overheating. Finally, it was over. The sun was setting. The students gathered around Aizawa. All right. The results. Aizawa tapped his device. A hologram appeared. 1. Momo Yaoyorozu. 2. Shoto Todoroki. 3. Katsuki Bakugo. 4. Tenya Ida. 8. Izuku Midoriya. 20. Minoru Mineta. Izuku stared at his name. 8th. He was in the top half. I passed, he whispered. The relief was so intense his knees almost buckled. By the way, Aizawa said, putting his device away. The expulsion thing was a lie. Huh! It was a logical ruse to draw out your maximum potential. Wait, a what? The class screamed in unison. That was obviously a lie, said a tall girl with a ponytail, Yaoyorozu. I knew it immediately. You did not. Kaminari cried. Aizawa turned to leave. Syllabuses are in the classroom. Look them over. Midoriya. Izuku stiffened. Yes, sensei? Go to Recovery Girl and get that finger fixed. It's gross. Why, yes, sir. Aizawa walked away. As he turned the corner, he stopped. All Might was hiding there, peeking around the wall. You liar, All Might whispered. Aizawa glanced at him. All Might. So you were watching. A logical ruse? All Might scoffed. You expelled an entire class of first years last year. You cut people without hesitation if you think they have zero potential. All Might looked at the retreating figure of Izuku. You saw it, didn't you? The potential. Aizawa shrugged. He has spirit. And he has a brain. But he's unstable. That steam shot was clever, but if he miscalculates the pressure by 1%, he blows his hand off. Aizawa walked past All Might. He's not zero. That's all. The walk home. Izuku walked out of the school gates, his finger bandaged. He was exhausted. Every muscle ached, but he felt light. Midoriya! He turned. Ida was marching toward him. Midoriya-kun! That was an incredible throw. Although the deception regarding the expulsion was quite cruel of Aizawa-sensei. Hey! Wait for us. Uraraka ran up, panting. You guys walk fast. I'm Achiko Uraraka. You're Ida, right? And you're... Deku? Actually, my name is Izuku, Izuku said nervously. Kaken calls me Deku to make fun of me. Oh. I didn't know. Uraraka realized. But... Deku sounds like Dikairo. Like you can do it. I kinda like it. I like it too. Izuku blurted out instantly. Midoriya-kun, you are folding too easily. Ida admonished. They laughed. For the first time, Izuku was walking home with friends. But across the street, watching from the shadows of the gate, stood Shoto Todoroki. He watched the trio laughing. He watched Izuku's smile. He uses fire, Todoroki thought, his hand unconsciously touching the scar on his left eye. He uses it freely. He mixes it with water. He makes it his own. My old man is going to see the sports festival. Todoroki's eyes narrowed. If Endeavor sees him, he's going to want him. I have to crush him. I have to prove that ice alone is stronger than his perfect balance. Todoroki turned and walked away, the ice on his right side leaving a faint trail of frost on the pavement.